if you're developing an outreach to children, the principles in the bus ministry are like your premise. This is what came out of doing bus ministry, right, in Holyoke. Saturday, we visited kids that already responded. We knocked on new doors. Then we developed a teen Bible study in the evening for the kids, and eventually an adult Bible study as well. Then, Sunday, obviously the kids came to Sunday school, but then as it grew, more parents came to Sunday church service. Then as that grew, guess what? Some parents started coming to midweek services. And then we started to take a Bible class. So literally, families got plugged in to the church, and actually some kids, you always have a provision, especially if you're dealing with kids from broken homes. But Christian school, we had a Christian school back then, of which Pastor Shabelli was the chancellor, if you want to call him that. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of testimonies. It's from Jack Hiles. And I'm probably going to show you a clip. Next class is going to be audio video time. This is paper week. Next class is audio video. Any wrestling fans here? Old school. Huh? Fake. Okay, I'll read this. It says, soul winning never ceases to bring blessings. A soul won many years ago will give dividends for eternity, which is true. Not long ago, I was preaching in a city in Florida and exhorting people to go out into the highways and hedges and bring in the poor as well as the rich. I spoke especially about little children and the importance of reaching those for whom no one else cares. After the service, a pastor introduced himself to me, then turned to introduce his lovely wife. As I shook her hand, she said, "I think you know me. I was a member of your little country church near Marshall, Texas many years ago." Immediately, I remembered that she lived in a little country house and I had gotten up early one Sunday, driven several miles, and brought a group of little children to Sunday school. She was one of those little children. I hadn't seen her for years, but now she is the wife of a successful pastor. A few weeks ago, I was in Dallas. After the service, a fine young student at Dallas Seminary approached me. When he was 5 years old, I had been to his home soul winning, and often I had driven a couple of miles to take him to Sunday school. He reminded me that he is now a preacher and a student at the seminary. One day as a kid preacher, I was out soul winning. I came upon a farmhouse and won several to Christ. A little cotton-haired girl spoke to me as I left and said, "Brother Hiles, you're not going to forget me, are you?" Little did I know that she wanted to be saved too. She was saved, and years later, to my delight, I found she was a student at the Tennessee Temple College. She then was employed as a faculty member, and shortly after was killed tragically in a car accident. Not long ago, I met a young lady who was a graduate of Bob Jones University and is now teaching school. My mind wandered back to the day when I went into her modest home to help her poor family. The family was saved, and though very poor, the young lady had a desire to go to college. Now she was teaching in a Christian school. And there are many other stories. I just pulled that off of Jack Howe's website because we modeled our bus ministry after Jack Hiles. Jack Hyles, old school, hard-nosed Baptist preacher with John Rice back in the days. And Pastor Stevens was very, well, he traveled, maybe not traveled with them, but he was in that church group. And then he took the conviction of soul winning and praying and many other things that were taught so well, and but they didn't teach grace, finished work, etc. And Pastor broke off and developed that. But the principles of soul winning, we totally modeled our bus ministry after Jack Hyles, who was a tremendous influence. I mean, when you got old school guys like that, especially in the old days, there was a lot of segregation in churches. Segregation meaning Baptists don't talk to Catholics, etc. Yada yada yada. Even born again saved churches, you know. So a lot of his stuff is like very extremely motivational. If you're developing a kids ministry, I would totally suggest that you would look at some of the old. They have old clips of him, and they have actually Pastor Schaller showed it I think it was last year. He showed some Jack Hyles clips in one of his classes, but developed. If you're going to minister to children, Jack Hyles, like for me, like he talks about soul winning. He challenges you to go soul winning every day, 4 hours a day. Like, that's extreme, right? No. Not really. But that's how he challenges his staff and his people. And it's like you always want to, someone that pushes you or someone that has a greater passion than you, that's how you motivate yourself to do what God has called you to do. Working with kids, you want to get around people that have a passion for kids and learn from them and glean from them. Discern through this, that, calls the Pope an Antichrist, whatever. Discern through that stuff, but get the meat out of it. So, okay, kids. Any questions? Any questions? So don't start working with kids unless you're going to stick with them and develop a plan for their entire family. That's very important. Very important. Now, teenagers, I said to you I would refer you to Pastor Love's classes in teenagers, everything he's teaching you about ministering to teenagers. The one thing I will say is this, okay, what is Satan's number one area of attack in a teenager? And I did something last year, but I didn't do it this year. But I don't know if I'll do it before the end of the semester. I handed out because it's not 100%, but there's different things that affects the development of a child. Let me see if I did this with you. Tell me if I did this with you. I gave you the example of a child sensing the first sensing rejection from birth. Did I give you that illustration? Do you remember that illustration? If you remember it clearly, raise your hand. All right. Nobody raised their hand, so I'm going to do it again. Once I find my pen, I'm going to do it again. Okay, I'll do it real quick. Eventually. See, Catherine, if you quit your job and help me out, this will go so much smoother. Anybody see what I did with that thing? Okay. All right. You have a child who's born into a home. Okay? And let's say little Johnny is born into Johnny's home. Okay? How many parents does it take to make a child? Hey, relationship class, right? 2, right? 2. It takes 2 kids to. It takes two adults to make a child. Come on, this thing is right in front of my face. Nope. No. It's in my pocket. Nope. 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 I must have sat it down. It's in this room because I didn't leave this room. Gosh, man. Okay. All right, see if you can follow me. Oh, here it is. You dropped it. Okay. Awesome. Going backwards. This way. 4, 5. As you get older in your Christian walk, oh well. Okay, I'll do it here. Okay. You don't worry so much about awkward moments of silence. Okay, here's Dad. Here's Mom. Right? Little baby's born. Okay? Here's a little baby. Right? Little baby. Does this baby have a soul? Okay. How much things in life have scarred that baby's soul as a newborn? A little bit, right? Maybe a little bit of turmoil in the house. A little bit. But for the most part, baby's free and clear, right? Now, miracle of a baby. When a baby's born, you have a newborn baby, right? The doctor have to put the baby in front of you and Gina and say, this is your parents? Or did the baby automatically know? The baby automatically knows. It reaches out with its full heart for parents. Now let's say Pops is a dog, because we know all the women are perfect and it's the guys that are dogs, right? Let's say the guy is not in the picture. What happens to this child now? Does this child reach out for his dad? Huh? Does he? Yeah. And what happens to that child when he reaches out and daddy's not there? Rejection. Right? Now, truth is it that child's fault? No. But does the child take the blame on himself? Absolutely. 100%. And here comes the creation of poor self-image, insecurities, etc. Lack of trust, defense mechanisms, and learning not to trust authority. Right? All that starts to develop out of here. Okay? Now, let's say, this is why we're bringing in the ministry to kids. Because this is developing. This stuff is developing now. Okay? It's developing. When a child is young, like I'm 50 years old. Okay? I have a lot more scars on my soul than any child at the age of 5. Okay? When a child, and the way it works, by the time a child is like 9, 10, 11 years old, it becomes harder to influence that child's soul in a different direction. Okay? So when a child is young, it's very easy to maneuver their soul. In other words, if this child at the age of 3, if mom was a born-again Christian and she was very loving and ministering Christ to that child would grow with a lot less scars. Okay? So our bus ministry, our kids program, is to try to stop this process and bring in truth, and so that child grows and develops into a healthy adult. Because understanding relationships and all that stuff is an objective. It's not emotional, it's objective. Okay? It's objective. Objective thinking with a person. It's not emotional. Ooh. That's, anybody that's married knows that it's not about ooh. Because the ooh doesn't make you love the person. Loving the person, it makes you have a permanent ooh in your heart. Okay? Now, if you don't understand that, ask my wife. All right, now, but who's making the decisions for this child? Up until the age of 13. We'll just use that number. Who's making the decisions for that child? If a child is 8 years old and he dies, where does he go? Huh? Even if that child's the worst liar you ever met in your life? Why? Because he's not accountable for his own actions yet. Until he reaches the age of accountability, which is when that child is able to reason and make choices based upon that reasoning for himself, him or herself. Everybody understand that? Age of accountability. Okay? If my 5-year-old kid is yelling at his mother every day, whose fault is that? It's the back of my hand's fault for not reaching that hiney enough. Right? I've seen babies yell and scream at their mother like, meh. It's like, oh my goodness. My daughter did that once. Once. She could tell you about it too. But anyway. Age of accountability. What happens at the age of accountability? What kicks in? Which is why it's so important to minister to teenagers. Huh? Yeah, it's there. Who said that? The volition. Because at the age of accountability, now the child has to learn to make volitional choices for itself. Who knows that? Why do you think the teenage years are so rebellion? Are teenagers experts at making volitional choices? Oh, excuse me, Mommy. Excuse me, Mother. I'm going to indulge in doctrine for a few hours, and then I will make my bed and do my chores. Right? Is that what happens? Tom Coban, did you ever talk back to your mother? Don't mess up my illustration. Rebellion. Rebellious attitudes. Now, so the attack, satanic attack on teenagers, is an attack to keep them from using their volition to follow after God. Okay? I have to try and see for myself so I can choose for myself. And it is very important that a child learns to choose God. One of the things that was very effective for us in doing teen ministry was we took our kids and we took our teenagers from the church, the kids that grew up in the church, and we took them right into the ugly of bus ministry. To the poorer sections, to the broken homes, to the drug-filled homes, etc. And because those kids, teenagers, fell in love with the little kids in the outreach, it hit them, the effects of all of these things. And most of them did not have to go and experience it for themselves, because in their investment in these children, they experienced the reality of sin. Do you follow that? Yes, dear. Ladies and gentlemen, Dakota Hobie.
Before the kids reach the age of accountability, is it that they don't have free volition?
They have free volition, but they don't know how to use it. Like, we're adults, right? We know we have to make choices. We know that. Like, we have consequences. Okay, a child is supposed to be disciplined and instructed. The discipline and instruction teaches them choice. But you know, tell a kid don't touch the stove. They don't know why not to touch the stove until they burn their hand. Then they burn their hand, and now they understand and they choose not to touch the stove. You see what I'm saying? But when you're a young kid, you don't, and also, because you're so vulnerable as a young kid, you are really, you ever, like, it's a sad thing, but you ever know a person who brags how their kid can just drop some swear words? Unsafe family, hey, listen to him. Beep, 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 beep. And they think that's cool. Well, who taught that to that kid? And why is the kid responding to it? Because he's just trying to please mommy and daddy, right? He's not making an objective decision, a rational decision on his own. He's not old enough, okay? But as you cross through the teen years and develop into an adult, then all of a sudden, whether you've been influenced the wrong way or not, you are at that place where you are responsible to make the right volitional choices. Or you have to really, what the bottom line is, you take on the responsibility of your decisions. You're accountable for your decisions. Like, you shoot somebody. You shoot somebody when you're young. If you're 10 years old, the courts are going to look at your family. You'll be held accountable, but they're more likely trying to help you, not punish you. But if you're an adult and you shoot somebody, mommy can't bail you out of that one. You have to take on responsibility. Or if you're an adult and you decide not to go to work, and you're homeless, and you don't eat. So teenagers are under attack because that is where they develop how to use their volition. How to use their volition. And they're trying to balance out all these things that have influenced their soul in the past and all these things that are influencing their soul now. So now we get into developing ministries for adults. And when we go into the audio video, we're gonna list out some specific ministries and take a look at them specifically. But in a general sense, developing ministries for adults now we are basically dealing with the result of the child development, the teenage development, and now, as a responsible adult with the ability and the responsibility of making the correct volitional decisions, because now you will reap what you sow. Now we are trying to minister to the adult and help that adult to make the right volitional decisions. The key behind developing outreach programs is that you are trying to not manipulate volitions, but you're trying to teach people how to make correct volitional decisions in Christ. That's like something you can't, that's like an impossible thing to do. How do you teach somebody to do the right thing? Because you say so? Think about that. How do you influence somebody to make the right choice? Be an example. That's big. Be an example. But the most thing we can be an example of is really grace and mercy. Because perfection, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. It's a person, and when I say inconsistent, I don't mean sporadic and irresponsibly inconsistent. I mean a person that, if you have an outreach for 1 year, and let's say you miss a third, you can't be there a third of the time, or things happen. For a third of the time, you're not there. That inconsistency, if you're a grace and mercy person and a love person, is more great, better, more of an influence on the volition of another person than someone who was there 365 days in a program. Because your grace and mercy and love gives life. Okay? Now, programs you develop opportunities to create capacities for a positive volitional response from the recipient. Did you get that? The programs you develop are to create a capacity for the recipient to develop a capacity to respond to truth. So, we got a few minutes left. We talked about some specific programs for kids, but now we're talking about adults. What kind of, and then here you got your basic, door-to-door evangelism. But tell me some programs, some outreach programs or things we could do as an outreach to reach grown-ups. Yes. A businessman's meeting, that's very good. And think of it from the perspective where you landed on a mission field, and here we are. We're having a board meeting now. We just got here. Our suitcases aren't even unpacked. We just got off the plane. How are we going to get started? How are you going to reach? What do you have to? You first. Concerts, very good. Sketchboard. Okay. Now, what did you say? Avery, what did you say? Okay. There's a difference between what you said and what you two said. What is it? You said sketchboard. What did you say? Yes. Did you see that? You guys mentioned things to do, but that's like one occasion where she said was something that was consistent. Okay? Okay. Now, what did you say? Investment? Okay. How?
Well, I was just saying.
Just show up. Hey.
I was saying that was the difference between those.
Okay. All right. Yes, that's right. The difference is investment. Now, concert and sketchboard to get to find out who's receptive to invest in. That's a great initiation, and you need that. You need that because also to have a consistent businessmen's meeting, you have to have an initiation to those businessmen. What's another What's another outreach that will help develop an adult?
Classes.
English classes are very good. And a lot of times on the field, people that teach English classes utilize the Bible for that purpose. What's a simple? Simple. That's an occasional thing, but that's good. Although, if somebody walked up to me on the street and said, "Hey, you want to come over for dinner?" Yes, dear.
I think if we have a part-time job in the mission field, it can be used also like that to invest in people.
Yes. Yes. I always think, and you said businessman's meeting, but I always was of the conviction that if God called me to go to a place, that I would develop some kind of business. When I say business, I mean a business that makes me interact with people, but also I say it because it's important to be able to support yourself on the field. That's like a sidebar here. But in that nature, you develop a relationship with people. We're missing a simple one. Counseling services, excellent. Counseling services. Especially when you get the sense of what affects people's souls in that area. See, yes.
Reaching out to universities, high schools, elementary schools.
University. No, universities, yes, universities. Very good. For example, Puerto Rico, you have full access to universities. You could get a classroom and have everybody gather the whole 9 yards. You could walk around campus and people will stop and talk to you and pray, etc. So that's very good.
Having a church.
Hey, let's start from scratch, huh? Having a church service. Having a church service. That's the one I was looking for. Having a Bible study. A Bible study. And you know what's also very important? You said English. Somebody said English. English church service, Bible study, Bible college, Bible classes. You want people to get to know who God is. You want to teach them the Bible. Hey, we're having a free Bible college class. Free. And don't start in Leviticus. I'd like to teach you the book of Leviticus. All of these animals, we're going to sacrifice them as an illustration to this class. Right? It's like dissecting frogs. That's not complicated, is it? Those simple things are really the most important and effective ways to reach people. We have a service on Sunday. We have a Bible study. Hey, we're getting together. Going to have some coffee. We have a Bible teacher that's going to teach us some things. You ever read this book? Ever pick up this book and trying to figure it out? Well, we got a Bible study. You have questions? And that's open to all denominations, is it? Isn't it? How else can you reach adults? You just want to sing. Concert, singing group. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Didn't your fiddle playing? No, really, right? Like I think you kind of jumped right into the body when you came here, but wouldn't you say that playing the fiddle and being able to be a part of certain things helped accelerate that? You understand what I'm saying? It's awesome. You find out what talents a person has. You find out what gifts they have. How do you utilize that gift? You know what? That's how I'm here. Because Pastor Wright, when I went to his Bible study, and he found out I was a DJ. And so if you know Pastor Wright, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to record the messages, and the quality's not really coming out. I'm like, oh man, you know what? You need one of these things. I got one. Really? Will you help me record the messages? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I was like, oh, that means I got to come every week. But when I did, the word did its thing. See, that's the greatest thing you got to know. And you got to know that it's the word will do its thing. The word will do what it's supposed to do. It will. It will. Everyone in this room will have a spiritual crisis one day. I had a spiritual crisis in 1992, and I was gone for 2 years. Pastor Shabelli tells a story, but he tells it lopsided. He tells it like I was never saved before. I'll tell you the story next time. I don't think I have time to tell you the story. But all right. Close the door, please. Okay. Yeah, I was in a church that had a horrific church split. It affected people that were in my Bible study that I brought to that church from that city of Holyoke. I brought them to the church, under covering, and covering broke them. But the church fell apart. It's a big church split. It was ugly. Pastor Spelling probably tells a story sometimes. And also my wife at the time, that was it. She was gone. That was it. So I had a 3-year-old daughter at the time. 92, she was 2. Church, everything fell apart. Okay? So I was like, that's it. I'm done. Because the way it happened was you could not soul win. Like you couldn't soul win. People would say, hey, you go to church, don't you? Yeah. Really, it was the Holy Spirit was gone. It was gone. You sit in a place and the guy's preaching, and you're like, you got straws, and you're sucking, trying to suck the Spirit out of the air somewhere, and it's like nothing's happening. That was the weirdest experience I've ever had. And like you look, it's kind of like you look, and see the person, you see all the people like nothing's happening. So anyway, long story short, I left. I went back to Jersey with my daughter at my mother's house. And now I was from New Jersey, and that's Pastor Wright still had a church here, but I stopped in on him, let him know what was up. But I didn't go to church every Sunday. I was there for a year and 8 months. So one day the Holy Spirit woke me up Sunday morning, said, go to church. I said, okay. So I went to church, and I think he was only there one other time, but the first time, and me and Pastor Spelly were close. We went through this together. Like we went to this is after we went to Africa, the whole 9 yards. We went through this, and we did all this ministry Holyoke together. He was overseas. He came back, and as I was getting out of my car in Jersey, here he comes rolling up the street. He came down to preach that Sunday in Jersey. So, talked to him what was going on, and he said to me, the words he said to me, was, man doesn't change, man can't change the call that God has on your life. And that hit me like, whew. And then, man cannot change the call that God has on your life. Like, I was doing all these things for God, like really, and because of what other men did, it was destroyed. The work was destroyed. And so I quit. But he said, man cannot stop. That what they did had nothing to do with the call of God on my life. I still had a call on my life. And then he preached a message about God's love. And then what happened was one of my teenagers who was in Bible college had a daughter, and so I came to Baltimore for her first birthday party. And when I came, the idea was open. I was open to moving back to Baltimore, moving to Baltimore. And so, the lady she gave me, just happened her boss had a house that was opening up for rent, right? I said, okay, I don't have a job, I got a daughter. So she sent me Yellow Pages. I called a flooring company, and the guy hired me over the phone. So I just up and moved to Baltimore. But when I first came to Baltimore, I told Pastor, I'm not doing outreach. I said, no way. He's like, and don't let anybody condemn you about that either. It's like, you're taking care of your kid. And then he turned around and says, by the way, when you going for your ordination? But he knew, Pastor knew, and Pastor was what he was doing. He was understanding where I was, but he was the same thing. It's like, all that stuff is not going to stop the call of God on your life. So long story short, one of my teenagers in Springfield, Latasha, her brother was here in Bible college, and he asked me to help him because he had to do a practicum. So I was like, okay, I'm going to help you, show you what to do, but I ain't getting involved too much. So I went, first time I went, had a track, a lot of people walking up and down the street, ladies, what are you guys giving out? Oh, it's a little thing that tells you about the Lord. Oh, boy, I need Jesus. It's like, well, I'm like, yeah, well, you take it and read it, right? And she's like, really? Well, what is it about? So I'm like, well, Jesus died for you and stuff, so, if you accept him in your heart, She's like, really? Can I do that? I'm like, yeah, there's a little prayer right in the back. I'm literally, she's walking me through this process, right? And so she prayed, and when she prayed, because I didn't feel like, I didn't know, if anybody's been through a divorce, it's like the accusations that are against you, it's like, you're a Christian. You're supposed to be able to hold all that together, which is bunk, because you cannot change another person's volition, okay? And you're not responsible to, really. You're just responsible to be a good testimony. And so all of that burden was like, when that person prayed, I was released. And like, I felt it. It's like, the weight was just off me. Then I was just free to evangelize. Never thinking that I would be put in the position of outreach director. I was like, God, thank God I can soul win again. And the long story, I'm making it real short because it's late now. But when I first came back to church, I literally sat in the back of church like this. And I knew just what I learned when I got saved. I said, Lord, I've just put myself here. Because I was always close to Pastor. And he had sent me tapes throughout the years and stuff like that. And I sat in the back of the church. I was like, somebody says the wrong thing to me. It's like security's going to be dragging me out of this place, And it's like, I said, all I need is the Word. Because the Word will do its thing. And that's where I got that from. The Word would do its thing. If I just put myself here, the Word will do it. So you bring people in, no matter what condition they are, and just bring them in a place where the Word is. And if they receive the Word will do its work. The Word will do its work. and my wife has a very similar testimony. But the funny story is that she was my secretary back in the Holyoke days of bus ministry, like in the early '80s, way before all the stuff happened. So for us to get back together after all that was kind of like crazy, miracle. So anyway, but Pastor Shabelli will tell a story as if I was some kind of drunken bum underneath the bridge in New Jersey, picking the rat feces out of my teeth or something like that. And then he came along and said he saved me out of the gutters and brought me back to Baltimore and stuff like that. But anyway, praise the Lord. Father, bless this class, bless these students, and thank you so much for their lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, also, if you didn't receive that booklet, doctrine booklet about death, there's some right here. Come take it if you didn't get one.